Super. We are recording. Good afternoon. Well, I guess it's still morning. Feels like afternoon already. This is Molly with Prairie Systems, and this is our FAS Live for July. Please mute your microphone if you have not done so already so that we can limit the background noise for everyone who is listening in. And we will get started with our presentation in just a moment. Looks like we have a few other people hopping on, so we'll let some people get hopped on, and let's go ahead and let them get their microphones muted, and then we'll get started with our presentation. Okay. All right. If you can hear me okay, give me a thumbs up, shoot me in the chat. Just shoot me a hey, can hear you. That would be great, just so I know that you guys are hearing me from the other end since you are all muted. All right, and we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that. Okay, so today's FAS Live topic is, did you get what you expected? How to track and validate from order to invoice in FAS. Have you ever wondered, did my order get sent to the mill? What order information was sent to the mill? How can I tell if the mill received my orders? And have I received all invoices for my orders? To verify information about your order being sent to the mill, we have a couple of different tools in the system where you can visually see information that tells you about the order send process. The send orders display is the first, and then the orders report. In the send orders display, when you send an order to your mill vendor, the order send methods that are going to be utilized are displayed on the screen, and as the order is sent, when you click Send Orders, it will display a status update for each send method to indicate if the send method was able to complete successfully. So when you see Sent Successfully here on the Send Orders page, that does mean that the order was sent from our server to the mill via one or more method. In this case, in this example, this mill receives their orders via both email and Mill Connector. Now, if you click Send Orders and you get distracted and you click away from this screen before you get a chance to review that information, the Orders Report is the place that you can always go to see order status information. The Orders Report is located under the Global Reports menu, and it is the very first option under that menu. By default, the order status field is displayed on the report, and that field will display the most current status of information known about that order. So here's a set of 4 orders in our example. The top order there, you can see the status is email sent. So that tells us that the email was sent to that vendor for that order. The order directly below it says FAS created. So that is an order that has been created but was not actually sent to a vendor by any specific send method yet at this point. And then the 2 below that were orders that were sent over to the vendor via Mill Connector. The Mill Connector status in this case is Mill Connector Pickup Ready. Mill Connector statuses can be Pickup Ready, Mill Connector Dropped Off. So that is just a communication of whether or not the mill's Mill Connector application has picked up that order from the server and delivered it to the order destination at the other end. But it does indicate here that that order was successfully sent via the Mill Connector send. All right, what information was sent to the mill? We know we have specific information in our orders that we type in there or that are populated in our order as we generate an order. But if you want to be able to see what information was sent to the mill, there's a couple of different methods to see that. The orders report has a view PO tool we'll take a look at. And then there's an email management report where if your order is sent via email, you can actually view the email that was sent. In the orders report, again, this is the same orders report located under global reports that we were just talking about. There is a view PO feature right here. So if you click on the icon next to the order number on the orders report, it will open up a PO detail window. This PO details window gives you all of the information about the order that was created when you created your order, and there is even a show or hide mix. By default, this button here says show mix, and when you click on it, it will expand and show you exactly the mix that was sent to the mill with the order. So by default, that's collapsed just to save you some geography on your screen, but you can click on that button and display the mix. In addition, there's a complete order status history that displays at the bottom of this that gives you the entire status, and we'll talk about that. The email management report is another report where you can see information that was sent to a mill when an order was sent via email. This report, again, is located under our Global Reports menu option. When you pull up the report, it will list emails sent out of your system, and each email has a view link that we can see right over here. And my apologies that I didn't highlight that here for you. But when you click on the view link, it opens up a new window that displays to you exactly what was sent to the vendor in their email. All right, now, how can I tell if the mill received my order? Again, back to the orders report and the order status information. There's an order status called received or verified that tells you that the mill did receive or verify receipt of your order. Here's an example of that. These particular orders, this top order has received, order received. That is one order receiving status that gets recorded when a vendor receives your orders via email and acknowledges the order by clicking a link in the body of the email. Verified order verified is another order received status that is generated by a vendor that uses our vendor console website and selects to verify an order. Essentially, these things mean exactly the same thing. The mill has acknowledged receipt of your order by one of these two methods. All right, let's talk about invoice features. Some of the questions we commonly get asked or that we commonly ask as users are, how can I record invoices for my orders? How can I view the invoices? How do I know if all invoices have been recorded? And how can I validate the invoices that have been recorded? So let's talk through some of the features that help answer those questions. How can I record invoices for my orders? There are two methods to record invoices in FAS against your orders. Data entry, feed invoices, is a place where you can manually record invoice information against an order. If your vendor is able to generate or your mill is able to generate an invoice data file, invoice data can be imported into FAS against the orders under the Data Import General File Import page. Let's take a closer look at each one of these. So the data entry page is where the feed invoice entry. So under data entry, you'll see feed invoices as an option. When you pull up that screen, to record an invoice against a PO, you have the option of using one or more of these filters to find the purchase order number that corresponds to the PO to the invoice that you have in front of you. Or if you do already know the purchase order number for the particular invoice, you can simply type in that purchase order number and click Go. Once you select a purchase order number, FAS brings up everything it knows and expects about that order. The purchase order information, what we call the order header information, is displayed what was the order date, the delivery date, who was the vendor, the group, the lot, what ration was expected, what was the original ordered amount. And then below in the body of the form allows you to enter the information about that specific invoice that you want to record against that order. And there's a few various features in here, but initially you're going to record an invoice number, you're going to record a total weight, and you're going to record a dollar amount. And FAS records and has the information for the expected ingredient quantities from the order, and that information can be tweaked to match up what the vendor did invoice and verify the prices. So the mix, this expected mix, is recorded when the order gets created in FAS, and then FAS also uses ingredient and drug prices to go ahead and present you the expected prices as a way of trying to make that data entry process as simple, fast, and efficient as possible. We try to pre-populate as much information as we can. The other method to get invoices into FAS is through importing an invoice data file. Under the Data Import menu, there is a General File Import page option. That's the very first option under Data Import. And this General File Import page is a page where a lot of different types of data can be recorded. So if you are receiving invoice data files from an external vendor or another billing system or an accounting system, then what you will do is you will select one of the invoice format options that are available on this page. And if you go to this page in your FAS system and you drop this import format list down, you're going to see that we have a lot of invoice format options. There are a lot of different accounting systems out there, and there are a lot of different formats of invoice data exports out of those accounting systems, even multiple formats out of the same system. If you do not see a format that you think would be compatible, or if you cannot find a format that's compatible with a data file that you have, send that file to us and tell us as much as you can about the vendor and the system that was originated from, and we will help you identify the correct format to use for your particular vendor's file. Another way to create invoice records in FAS, if you are the feed mill or you own the feed mill, is by importing batching records. So if your batching system can generate, again, batching data export files, then you can import those batching data records into FAS. And if you have ingredient prices populated in FAS, that import process will take those batching records and create invoice records in FAS from those batching data files. There's more specific details about this, and we can go into some specific training, but I want to stay really high level with this today and just teach you about the different methods of generating invoices. If you would like more information about importing batching files or invoice files, please contact us, and we will show you the help information and the training information on that. All right, how can I view invoices? The number one place to view invoices in FAS is the invoice report. Again, this is located under Global Reports. Go back to our Global Reports menu. The invoice report shows you all kinds of information about the invoice records after they are recorded in FAS. So whether you hand entered that invoice under data entry feed invoices, or you imported an invoice data file or a batching file that generated invoice records, you'll be able to review those invoice records on the invoice report. There are several fields of information, and again, this report, similar to our other reports with our Smart Report style, can be filtered and sorted in various ways. How do I know if all invoices are recorded? From the orders report, there is an invoice field and there's a filter, and I want to identify that because I do feel this is something that I recommend to my users, especially the ones that are hand entering invoices or importing invoice files, how do you know if you got all of the invoices you expected? To know that, you can go and generate the orders report from the Global Reports menu, and this invoice field on the orders report can be filtered specifically for uninvoiced POs. That uninvoiced POs are orders that were created in your FAS system that do not have an invoice recorded against them. Now, there's a couple different scenarios. It could be that you just haven't received those invoices from your vendor yet, or it could be that you had generated an order and canceled it with the feed mill, but failed to come into FAS and cancel the order after you canceled it with your vendor. So this is always a good idea to review this report after entering or importing invoices to make sure that you don't have any unexpected outstanding orders. Good mix validation. So the big question and the big feature that we really want to highlight today is our good mix validation. What can good mix tell you about your invoices? If you are a producer, good mix can tell you, were you invoiced for the expected quantity of each ingredient? It can also tell you, were you invoiced for the expected cost of each ingredient? Now, what if you're not the producer? What if you're the feed mill? What could good mix tell you? Does it have value? Absolutely. If you are the feed mill, good mix analysis can give you an indication if your mixing process is as accurate as you expect. Let's take a look deeper. Where do you find good mix information? The primary place to find the good mix information is on the invoice report, and what you're going to look for is the good mix status field. So here's an example of an invoice report. Again, this invoice report is located under Global Reports. The good mix status field on the report gives you that thumbs up, thumbs down, or the NA as a I don't know, verification of, does the good mix analysis consider this invoice to be a good mix? Yes. Or not a good mix? No. Or NA means that FAS cannot determine that for one reason or another. And if you click on the NA, it will actually tell you the reason that is unable to determine a good mix status. What constitutes a yes or a no? If you click on that good mix status of a Y or an N, this is an example of one that is an N, you will get a detailed layer of the good mix analysis. How is FAS analyzing this invoice against what it knows to tell you that it is not a good mix or it is a good mix? So FAS compares the mix weight and the invoice weight for each ingredient. It also compares a bid price versus the invoice price for each ingredient. It calculates the difference between the expected quantity and the invoice quantity and calculates that as a variance percent. Variance tolerances, and we'll talk about this, can be set by ingredient and by medication. If you don't set a tolerance, the system default is 5%, both for price and quantity. In this case, anything that is deemed to be out of tolerance is highlighted in red in this display. So we can see a couple of issues in the weight variances. Salt is extremely out of tolerance. We expected 96 pounds of salt, but the invoice only included 52. That's a 45% variance. We have our tolerance threshold set at 1%. So therefore, good mix fails on this weight variance. Here's another weight variance on this example of Optify. Again, in this case, more was invoiced than what was expected by 29.4%. And that's an ingredient that we have a really low 0.5% threshold on. What threshold you determine that you want to use for your weight tolerance is completely up to you. If you don't know what to use, we recommend just starting out with our standard 5%, and then you can tighten it up to lower values as you see fit, or increase it to higher values as you see fit based on the data that you see from your actual invoices from your vendors or your mill. In addition to quantity, as I stated before, we also analyze the cost. So here's an item that we expected to cost $40.32 based on the bid price of 40 cents a pound. And we were invoiced 52 cents a pound, or $52.42, for an unexpected variance of $12.10, which was 23% off. And we do have a 1% variance tolerance on price for these ingredients. So again, that is highlighted in red as a reason that this particular invoice does not pass our good mix validation. Now, in addition to the ingredients that FAS has been able to match up, that were expected as a part of the mix and came in as a part of the invoice, we will also highlight any ingredients that were expected as a part of the mix that were not invoiced, and you would see that as unmatched mix items. In this example, we have a couple of ingredients that came in the invoice that were not a part of the expected mix. So we can see a couple of line items down here under unmatched invoice items. So this, pardon me, if all of these were in tolerance for quantity and price up above, the good mix status for this invoice would still be a no because there are unmatched invoice or mix items. This data can be exported to Excel for further analysis or to send on to someone else who needs to follow up on the variances. And then in addition to that, you can actually change that manually if you have a variance on an invoice and it's something that you're okay with and you don't want that invoice to be considered to be out of tolerance. You can actually click this manually change to a yes, and that will change the good mix status here to a yes from that point on. All right. There are several matching type of methods, and I'm not going to go into the details, but there is a very good document in the FAS help section that talks about how good mix matches the expected ingredient information to the invoice ingredient information, and I highly encourage you to take a look at that. Now, what is required? There is some information that is required to be set up to utilize the good mix analysis. FAS needs to know certain pieces of information to be able to do this for you. Number one is ration mix records. Your rations need to have mix records that give the expected formula, or the expected mix of a ration before the orders are created. FAS records the expected quantities of each ingredient for the order based on that mix record when the order is created. Ingredient price records and drug price records are required for FAS to use those to validate the pricing. There's a couple of different places. All of those are done under data entry ingredient prices and data entry drug prices. I'm not going to go into exactly how to do those today, but there are help documents out there related to entering ingredient prices and drug prices. All right, so that's our real high-level information on order to invoice verification with FAS. I'm going to go ahead and unmute our participants and let you guys go ahead and ask us some live Q&A questions about these features, any questions that you have or that we can answer, or any experiences that you have had, and maybe what these have done for you. All right, who has a question for us today?
I have a question, Molly. This is Jan. Are the orders report, is that for only groups that are open?
By default, the orders report does select groups that are open, but the group status field is available there so that you can show orders that are for closed groups as well. So the filter on that particular group status field, you can switch that to show closed groups as well.
Okay. I didn't see the status field, I guess. I'm going to look on my...
It's probably not a field that displays as a part of the default display, but it would be in the column visibility fields that you could take a look at that. And we can always go over that together offline, Jen, if you want to do that.
Okay.
Good question. By default, the invoice report will show all invoices for a time frame, whether the groups are open or closed. Alicia, you were our featured user in our FAS newsletter, our inaugural FAS newsletter, talking about how Good Mix has helped your company with invoice validation with your mills. Do you have a couple of just highlights or pointers that you can restate with this group about what Good Mix has been able to do for your operation?
Sure. Excuse me. I mean, it was one of the things that we didn't focus on right away, of course, but, you know, after we kind of got comfortable with everything else, that was what we dug into, and we quickly realized that, you know, we've probably been struggling for a while at mills and didn't realize it. And, anyways, I just encourage everyone, you know, take a little bit of time and look into it, because we were able to save a lot of money, you know, just by finding errors. And, you know, now that we've taken those back to the mills, you know, there's been some adjustments made, so, you know, again, that cost savings to us, but now, you know, things are running pretty smoothly, but, you know, I still take time to check it, and it's just kind of a peace of mind that, okay, you know, what we send is what they took out there, and, you know, no surprises with the price. So, yeah.
So, Alicia, how often do you review the Good Mix information?
Not as often as I do. We upload the invoices every week. But right now it's probably every 10 to 14 days that I get in there and actually go and look at them. But we've also been trying to get ready for our first grower meeting, so that's part of the reason. But my goal is to look at them every week, and my thought process behind that is that the information is provided to us once a week, but I'm not looking at it until 2, 3, 4 weeks later. If there was an issue, you know, we're already a month out, and so that's kind of what we're trying to gravitate towards.
Good point. Good point. What are some of the issues that Good Mix helped you identify? And you don't need to give us any specifics as far as companies or anything, but what are some of the kinds of things that you were able to find using Good Mix analysis?
Sure. The biggest one was one of the mills was really over grinding a lot. You know, obviously that's common, you know, a little bit here and there, and, you know, we don't expect them to have it 100% exact, but like I said, it was a concerning amount, to say the least. And then also how that mill was charging us for their overage. You know, we discovered they were charging us for some of the more expensive items when, you know, I mean, who knows? It could have been a cheaper item that was over, but we were getting charged at a, you know, one for the higher ingredient. So those are the main things so far. Another one was, you know, this was a different mill, and we just noticed there was a consistency of, you know, like some of the salt and whatnot being off. Well, we just took it to their attention, and, you know, they called someone in to come look at it, and it was resolved, and it's been fine ever since. I mean, you know, obviously a little bit each time it's expected, but these were big amounts, and yeah, like I said, it really just gives us a peace of mind, just knowing that it's being monitored and checked, and the mills have really enjoyed it, even though we've been coming to them with issues that are on them. They've just been super thankful for the accountability. So that's been refreshing, you know.
Awesome. That was going to be my next question for you, was how that's been received by the vendors. So, yeah, that's terrific to hear that the mills have been very receptive to that information. Thank you very much for your input. Is there anyone else on the call that has a question or a use scenario that has been using Good Mix? All right. Okay. I did have a message come in asking, how often should I review my invoice report for Good Mix? And I think Alicia kind of answered that for us in that question that I asked her. But really, truly, it's up to you. It's how current do you want to be on knowing how the results are of your invoices. And obviously the most current you can be is as soon as you have the invoices in FAS. You really can't review Good Mix without the invoice records. But if you are receiving invoice records from a vendor daily, you could review the Good Mix information of those invoice records daily. If you are only receiving your invoices weekly from your vendor, weekly definitely would be advised. To Alicia's point, if you're looking at Good Mix only once a month, and let's just say there's a pricing error on the part of the vendor, you've got many, many invoices that have been affected by that pricing error, that if you were reviewing Good Mix on a regular basis just as soon as you have the capability to with the invoices, you might be able to catch that, go to your vendor, stop that pricing error from affecting as many invoices. So it's completely up to you as an FAS user how often you review Good Mix. But as a customer, as a producer that is actually doing business with external feed companies and receiving invoices, as frequently as you can, or as makes sense for your operation, to try to make sure to help combat any particular issues from mixing issues or pricing issues that are identified by the Good Mix tool, the sooner the better, basically, is the rule of thumb. So it's completely up to you. Now, if you're a feed mill and you're using that Good Mix tool to help you analyze your mixing efficiencies, or your mixing accuracy, then again, that's up to you as a user as to how often you want to take a look at that from, say, a quality perspective of your operation. Many of my mills that are feed mills and are using that feature to take a look and review don't have that capability necessarily from their batching system, don't have a so-called variance report or something like that. So they use the Good Mix information, and they might pull that information once a month or once a quarter, and you can actually download that data to Excel and be able to do some further analysis of that. And if you're interested in learning about doing some of that further analysis with downloading multiple records into Excel and taking a look at the Good Mix, we can talk about that more in depth individually. We had another question come in, can I have more than one order send method? Is that not necessary? So you can. Again, this is completely user preference. The vast majority of our industry does like to use email, but we have all experienced the email that doesn't show up in someone else's inbox. So that is why FAS and Prey Systems have created other order send methods, such as the vendor console page, where is a website that the vendors can log into to see any orders you have created for their mill, or the Mill Connector method, which is an electronic order delivery method for mills that have the capability of importing orders. So those are much more reliable methods than email, but we know that a lot of people still like to see that email. So you can definitely have multiple order send methods, but just know that if you are relying 100% on email, we know sometimes emails don't end up in someone's inbox, and that's completely outside of our control. Good question. The key information is to really look at that orders report to piggyback on that particular question. The reason that you have different order send methods is to get the order to the mill. As a user, I want to know the mill got my order, and I don't want to spend a lot of time figuring that out. So that key feature of that orders report, where the vendor can acknowledge the order through the link in the email or through verification on the vendor console page, and you can see that on your orders report that the vendor has acknowledged the order, that has saved some of our users a lot of time from calling feed mills. So you can take a look at that report. I recommend to most of my new FAS users who are sending orders to an external party for milling to review that report at least once a day and run your eyes down through that order status field to identify if there are any orders that you have created and sent to a vendor that have not been acknowledged. I have another question. If my vendor says that they haven't received an order, but my order status indicates they have received it, how can I help troubleshoot this with the mill? Okay, so when you do see that order received status or that order verified status, that tells you that someone in their organization acknowledged that order. So to troubleshoot that with your vendor, you would simply, identify who were all the order email recipients or who has access to the vendor console that for their organization that would have acknowledged that order. But the only way for that order to be acknowledged as order received or verified is for someone at that organization to acknowledge it. So if the order does get lost after that point, there's really not a lot of visibility you can have. It's really kind of up to you, and I feel like most of your feed mills are pretty good. Do we have anybody that commonly has mills losing orders on this call? No. It's a pretty important thing, and most of our feed vendors are pretty good at once they get that order, keeping track of it. So. All right. Any other questions or comments about order verification, about invoice validation, and our Good Mix feature? This was a real high-level introduction to these features. We'll have more information. There is more information in our help documentation, and we will be putting out some more small tutorial videos on each of these individual functions and features for you to review. So if you have no further questions, we will go ahead and wrap up our call today. Thank you for everyone who participated. I'm going to go ahead and close this out to make sure everybody can see that. Thanks for joining us. For further information, if you get off this call and you have a question that pops into your brain after we're done today, feel free to send an email to support@prairiesystems.net and ask our support team your question. Or if you need some specific training on any additional features, again, feel free to reach out to us. Our live webinar is recorded, and as soon as the recording is processed, we will have the replay set up on our private YouTube channel. There is the link that you can go to, bit.ly/FAS Live, but you can also access that in the FAS Help Resource Library. Under the news information, there is a link, a document with a link to that private YouTube channel. So thanks again, everyone, for joining our call today. Hopefully this answered some questions about this order-to-invoice verification processes that are available in FAS. I hope you all have a great day. We'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Molly.